We are called the Local Studio, interior design firm, and our office is located in Port Carling. So essentially, we are a turnkey interior design service that gives our clients the vision from the inside out for whether it be a new build, a renovation, a whole cottage, or maybe even just a single room. There's no project that's too big or too small. In my mind, all the details still need to be considered no matter the scale. We provide our clients with a really efficient, structured process that just through experience I've learned to build. So essentially it just makes everything really streamlined, really efficient for all the trades involved, all the suppliers involved, and especially our clients. It really gives them an ease, a peace of mind when they're doing something like this, because it's such an emotional financial journey to undergo, whether it be a new build or a renovation. And we're here to not only give guidance design and functionality wise, but also be there for that roller coaster of the process that it is, because it's a lot going on and there's a lot of moving parts, and our job is to help with that whole process.
Well, and I think just when you said there's a lot of moving parts, like I feel like for some people, it's like, where would I start and what are the steps? So if I'm somebody who is looking at, okay, I'd like to stay in my home. I want to sort of work with what's here. I'm curious as to what a renovation would entail. How can I get some ideas? Would they then reach out to you, and then where would you take it?
Yeah, so I love that, because I find, although I do love a new build because it's a blank canvas, but one of the reasons why I reached out and connected with you as well is out of Muskoka, I think it's hard sometimes for people to see the vision in a really old, dated cottage. They can't necessarily go in and see the bones like we can. So we're here to, try and breathe fresh air into something that's already existing without right away going to like, oh, we need to tear it down. No, like, let's look at what we can renovate first. And we have that skill set through education and experience to go in and be like, you know what, if we, knock down this wall, we open up this, we can bring in more light with more windows. You don't necessarily have to tear down. We're here to give you a vision and, build on that and really guide you through the process and let you see the potential in existing buildings and new builds too. But I think it's really important to try and maintain those structures where we can.
Well, and I think too, with the current housing market and where prices are going, I think in some of my conversations with some of my clients, it's, we're either going to stay put and sort of invest in our current home or cottage and try to work with what's there. So it's great that you're providing this option, because there's a lot of moving parts, as you said, and it's not like just going on Pinterest and saying, oh, like, I love Pinterest, but I'm also not an expert designer and going to try to put it together myself.
And for sure. And I like that you brought up Pinterest, because I find there's a lot of gray area where people don't know the difference necessarily between interior decorating versus interior design. So with us, we're doing like your full electrical plan, your full plumbing plan, like where the slab penetration is on new builds. Where is the HVAC going through? What do those vents look like? Like, how is your floor transitioning to tile from hardwood? Like, what is the fireplace detail? What is the fireplace insert? There's so many things, and how all of those connect together are just so important that they're integrated, because those are the little things. If they're done wrong and you go in, you notice them and you're like, something's not quite right about this space. I can't put my finger on it, but it's just not flowing. And we're here to connect all those parts and organize all the trades in those parts and kind of make sure that design intent is followed through right to the end without you having to worry about it. That's our job, but we're following orders. We're it's very detail oriented and there's a lot going on. So the decorating part, while very important, is just a step in this whole package that is quite vast.
Wow. And that's, it's interesting, because I think it's for people who don't maybe know the difference or really understand the difference between, decorating actual design and everything that you're talking about right there. And especially if somebody, which I imagine some of your clientele are in the city, they're not living here full time. So they need to be able to trust somebody to handle, especially all of those sub trades. Like I could think of at least 5 there from what you were just saying, and to try to coordinate everybody. And it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. And, I become best friends with whoever the general contractor is on site, because there's a huge timeline and things unspecified. They need to get there at a certain time, but not too early, not too late. And then they have to be installed as per our design. So there's so many like site visits, follow-ups, check-ins, like where's this, making sure it's there. Something's on back order. What are we going to do to replace it? Like there's just so many things, and we're here just to like take care of all of that. But it is a lot of things that, like you said, if you're not in it, you don't know all these moving parts that happen behind the scenes that are really important, because those little things save time, and time is money. So in the end, it just having an efficient, really organized orchestra of events is so important, especially up here in Muskoka when things, you can't just run down the street to the store necessarily for anything. It's like we have to be very organized up here on our deliveries and execution.
Well, and especially now in the current situation, right, where I hear there's a lot of delays and a lot of costs are up because of, whatever, if it's the cost of production or just even transport and things like that. So
and lumber is like insane for a 2x4. It's like double what it was at this time last year. So any way that we can be more efficient and save our clients money, and it ends up saving the builders money and everyone, if those things are efficient, it will hopefully help to make up for some of those costs that have gone up quite a bit.
So it really is a concierge service that you're providing.
Yeah, I always joke, I'm like, even when we have our consultation meeting, I send out a like speed dating, like marriage counselor form to each partner that really goes into depth of like their routine, their lifestyle, and like spare no niceties, like tell me the dirties, because like if you're singing in the shower at the top of your lungs, like in the morning, and your husband's trying to sleep or your wife's trying to sleep, like I need to know that so I can make sure she doesn't have to hear you anymore. Like things like that, like all these little details matter. And so yeah, it's the more you know, and you're a project manager, you're a designer, but you're also a counselor sometimes when it comes between making decisions. So there's a lot of hats I wear and the team wears every day for sure.
Yeah, I can relate to that in my business as well. I was recently just working with couples, and it's interesting because, and I love that you send out that to each of them, because it's interesting. Like a lot of the time they're not on the same page at the beginning, right? And because they're different people. And so, again, in my industry, it could be like, I want a big lake, I want a small lake, I want neighbors, I don't want neighbors. And so all of these things that sometimes don't come out until you're actually in the process. So I love that idea. I might have to use that in a sending out sort of a separate wish list, if you will.
Yeah, no looking or filling it out together.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. Yeah. So what do you see in terms of trends that are happening, whether it's like in design in general?
So that's interesting. A lot of like technology, of course, there's so many innovative products coming out, and it's really important to stay like in the know of those things. But for me, one thing our firm specializes in is called like biophilic design processes. So essentially what that means is there's 14 principles in biophilic design, and they're design implements that you can use to essentially connect an interior space with the exterior, and it's proven scientifically to increase the well-being of the user in the space. So there's so many interesting like underlying things that can happen, like with natural light and like shadow play and mystery and rhythm of materials and diversity that you apply in different ways. And that makes it personal to the client, but it's like they're they're feeling great and they might not even know why, but through design principles, we're able to do that, which I think is timeless in a sense. And then using natural materials found in nature and really connecting where your site is, the inside out. Like I go to site and I pick up like sticks and rocks and stuff, and the clients think I'm crazy, but then I use those to start my material palette because it's really connecting your specific land to your interiors. And that's how I build a palette. And I try to use natural materials wherever I can, because there's always trends, but something that has to do with nature and those natural materials lasts forever. And it really connects your cottage to your land, which I think is really important. Mm-hmm. And then there's a quote I read the other day, and it was like, if you love it, it will never go out of style. So I try to really connect with my clients and see, like, what do you love? Like, if you think it's outrageous, not on trend, that's okay, because if we're gonna put it in here, I want you to love it forever. I don't want you throwing it away in a year or like renovating in a year. And, you know, from a sustainable standpoint, that's not ideal. I want you to be happy with this for a really long time. So don't worry about the trends. What do you love? And working with natural materials never goes out of style in my opinion. So I try to balance both those things when I'm doing, or when our team is doing designs.
Well, and I think that too, I mean, there's, you know, and the word trend, but, or whether it's, you know, another word, but there's definitely a momentum in terms of people being more conscious about what is their home made out of, right? Like what are the materials, not only sort of the feeling and the vibe, but what are the quality of the materials. And like you were just saying, I think that sense of well-being and trust that you're in a home that's not toxic, that is working with the environment. And I think those are all things that we're starting to sort of see becoming more at the forefront, particularly when somebody is starting from scratch. But it's maybe too, you know, they can certainly implement those ideas into a reno. But how do you find the reaction is with price? And is there like a big price difference?
This all comes down to education. So speaking to what you were saying, at the core of my personal values and the company values, like hence why we named it the local studio, I think I'm making a huge effort to see like what is more locally supplied and harvested here, to not only support our economy as like Canadians, but also just having that story behind it. Like, oh, like you come into my place and be like, well, this hardwood's from, like, it was harvested in Canada sustainably and constructed this way that has like the glue like isn't toxic and things like that. I think that all comes down to education. And if we're not educated as designers of how these things are made, where they're coming from, all those things, like we can't really convince our clients to put them in their home, because why should they? But if we can really know why it's impacting and like how their footprints impacting their environment locally, I think being able to tell that story convinces them in a sense, because now they know they're helping their environment. But if you're just like, oh, this is just made in Canada, and they're like, oh, but like where in Canada, like why is it a better quality? Like by being educated, we're able to help spread that knowledge, so that especially in Muskoka, I find if I can sell a client on the story behind the product, they are super excited when they have guests over to be like, ooh, they're like, oh, I love your floor. Well, let me tell you about it. And if they can be like, I got this locally, and like for rock, for example, like this is from the Huntsville Quarry, and you know, I met with the owner of the rock community. If you can tell that story, people are like, oh, that's so great. Like, I wish I was doing something like that, or like, I should have done that. So it causes a momentum, but it all starts with the education and making sure you know those things, so you can educate your clients, so they can educate their friends, so that then when their friends come to you to design, it starts this momentum.
Yeah. Well, and I love that. And I think what, you're touching on is you have to sort of explain to people the value versus the cost, and sort of getting into that just for every reason you just said. And people love sharing stories, and I think it's to feel like good about that this was done ethically, and it's supporting the local economy, and it's healthy, like all of those things. That's all contributing to the value and how it makes somebody feel. So that's great. But let's just say I wanted to just renovate my home office space. Would that be something that you could help somebody with?
Oh, for sure. That's why I think in Muskoka too, in particular, people are like, oh, if I'm not doing my whole cottage, like, oh, I can't have a designer, or, it's just like intimidating for some reason. And I love having those smaller projects because I'm, especially with this at-home office situation, and a lot of people coming up and living in their cottage full time, or like doing schooling in university, things like that. I think it's so important to have someone like this in your corner. So ergonomically, you're feeling better, you're organized. It just will help you every day. And like, that's what I love doing. So even those little moments and little rooms that make such a big impact, I love doing, and our team loves doing, because on top of that, like I said, if I'm working on a project for 4 years, it's so nice to have these little moments in between, fresh moments that are just like so fun to do. And they usually end up having like a really huge impact on someone's life. So,
well, like I'm here at home right now and doing, and it's, like I think of, like how could I make this space more appealing and conducive? And I know even home gyms, people are sort of we're spending more time at home, and regardless of what happens down the road, I think that our homes have really kind of changed. And again, somebody with your expertise and your knowledge, it's great. And I'm so thrilled that you're here in our community. And again, thank you for joining me on this call. So how do people then find you? Where do we find you? I know you're on social media. That's how we connected, and word of mouth. But how do we find you?
Well, we have our website, and that is www.thelocalstudio.ca. And there is really nice because I lay out our process, kind of like the Coles notes, so you know what to expect of how we complete our work. It tells you a little bit about each person in the studio, because I think it's important that, you make it personal, and you should really know who you're working with, because design is so intimate. We're working on projects sometimes for 3 to 4 years. So you need to, be really tight with your designer and really comfortable, and vice versa. So yeah, and then just so like Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, and I will make sure that all of your contact information I'll share on social, so people, if they want to learn more, they can reach out to you. But
Awesome.
Thanks again, Kate.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, you bet.